Hello students, hearty welcome to English language class, and this is the continuation class of your previous video, that is active and passive voice. This is the second part of the same topic from our grammar syllabus. Hope all of you have watched the video and carefully noticed certain changes in certain tenses and sentences, and you have successfully understood that. Hoping that you have understood, I will move on to the second part of the active and passive voice, that is the grammar topic for today's video. Now again, to talk more about what is passive voice and what is active and how it reacts or how it changes. Passive voice can help to add more description and help a writer develop the subject more in depth. In active writing, the action becomes more important than the performer of the action, which is inconsistent with the goal of most academic papers. So this is what the slight difference between active and passive is. Let's move on to the next slide and see what it tells us about active and passive in the negative sentences. So the negative sentences are changed into passive voice like the affirmative sentences. The only difference is that did is removed and was or were not are used before past participle in passive voice. Now you have to check with the first video while you continue to watch the second one to have the continuity of the topic. Otherwise, there are chances of you getting confused with the sentences. So kindly check with the first one thoroughly, go through it, and then continue to watch the second one. Active voice. I did not read a book. So the passive one is a book was not read by me. You did not eat bread. Bread was not eaten by you. I have consistently used the same examples here, children, in both the videos. Maybe I have changed one example later on because there was a need to be for a change. So you can easily understand with the same example. Got it? Yes. In the interrogative sentences, the rule for the interrogative is interrogative sentences too are changed into passive voice. Yes, you can. Like the affirmative sentences, did is removed and was or were is put before the subject. That's the slight changes you do in interrogative sentences. And for active, it is did I read a book? And the passive was a book read by me. Did you eat bread? Under the passive one, was bread eaten by you? Let's move on to the next slide. Here, voice is placed before the past participle in passive voice. Under active, did I not read a book? And under passive, was a book not read by me? See, this is also under interrogative. Under active, did you not eat bread? And under passive, was bread not eaten by you? Can you make up the slight changes there? And there is one note to be observed and carefully learned. If a sentence contains a preposition, the preposition is retained and is placed after the past participle in the passive voice. For example, under active, the children laughed at the joker. Do you understand the place of at there? The preposition used. And in passive, the joker was laughed at by the children. Now you know the position of at, the preposition, to be retained and placed after the past participle. in the passive voice only, that is laughed. Do you understand? Yes. The next one is past continuous tense. Under the past continuous tense, affirmative sentences. Let us see what is the rule applied for the affirmative sentences to change. To change into passive voice, we use was or were plus being plus past participle. Under active, I was reading a book. Passive, a book was being read by me. Active, you were eating bread. Passive, bread was being eaten by you. So this comes under affirmative sentences. Now the affirmative sentences which have negative forms, these sentences are changed into passive voice and they have was or were plus not plus being plus past participle. So how does it change under active? I was not reading a book. When it becomes a passive one, a book was not being read by me. Under active, you were not eating bread. Under passive, bread was not being eaten by you. Now under the interrogative sentences rule, these sentences are changed into passive voice by adding was or were before the subject of the passive voice and putting being plus past participles after the subject. Under active, children, you have to take some time to understand the rule. You have to split the sentences, make a note of the changes, and then read the example. It will become very easy for you to understand. Was I reading a book? Under passive, was a book being read by me? Under active, were you eating bread? Under passive, was bread being eaten by you? Now the next negative interrogative sentences speaks about the sentences which are changed into passive voice by adding was or were before the subject of the passive voice and putting not plus being plus past participle after the subject. Under the active voice, was I not reading a book? And under passive, was a book not being read by me? Under active, were you not eating bread? Was bread not being eaten by you? Can you make out the slight changes there? Yes. Now let's move on to past perfect tense. Under the past perfect tense, affirmative sentences and the rule to change affirmative sentence into passive and active are had plus been plus past participle is used. Now under active, I had read a book. For passive, a book had been read by me. Under active, we had taught you. Under passive, you had been taught by us. Hope you have understood the slight difference there. Now coming to the negative sentences, the rule is to change into passive voice. We use had plus not plus been plus past participle. You have to keep one thing in mind, that negative will always have not. You have to use it in both. Under active, I had not read a book. Under passive, a book had not been read by me. Under active, we had not taught you. Under passive, you had not been taught by us. Now under the interrogative sentences, the rule is for changing into passive voice, place had before the subject and been plus past participle after the subject. How does it work for active and passive now? Under active, had I read a book? Just ignore A there. Here also in the next sentence, had a book been read by me? Here under active, had we taught you? And under passive, had you been taught by us? Children, here under active, the first example, ignore A there. The sentence is, had I read a book? Hope you have understood. The next one is of negative interrogative sentences. The rule is to change them into passive voice using had before the passive subject and not plus been plus past participle after the subject. Now under active, had I not read a book? Under passive, had a book not been read by me? Under active, had we not taught you? And under passive, had you not been taught by us? Now the next is future tense. Under future tense, about the affirmative sentences, the rule to change the affirmative sentence for future tense is to change them into passive voice. We use shall or will plus be plus past participle. You know all these basic things. You have seen in the earlier videos also how the tenses change. And that is how you have to apply. Now under active, I shall read a book. Under passive, a book will be read by me. Under active, we shall teach you. And under passive, you will be taught by us. Hope you have understood this. Now under the tense, the negative sentences and the rule to change them into passive voice, we use shall or will plus not plus past participle. Under the active sentences, examples change in this way. I shall not read a book. Under the passive, a book will not be read by me. Will you notice the change there? Shall and will, the placing of the shall and will there? Yes. We shall not teach you. Under passive, you will not be taught by us. Under interrogative sentences, and the rule is to change them into passive voice, place shall or will before the subject and be plus past participle after it. Under active, shall I read a book? And under passive, will a book be read by me? Now this technique of understanding the tenses and placing the subject and the past participle is very easy once you try splitting it properly and understanding it. Hope you have understood this part. Moving on to the next slide. The negative interrogative sentences. The rule is to place shall or will before the subject and not plus be or be plus not plus past participle after it. Now here there is a slight change with the placing of not be or be not. You have to carefully see to it while you use it in the interrogative sentences. Under active sentences, shall I not read a book? Under passive, will a book not be read by me? Now under active, shall we not teach you? Under passive, will you not be taught by us? Now what is the note here to carefully see? That the sentence having shall or will plus be plus not plus past participle is also considered as correct by some of the modern grammarians, as you can just ignore that. Now in the next one, future perfect tense. Under future perfect tense, affirmative sentences, and the rule is use will or shall plus have plus been plus third form of the verb. Under active, I shall have read a book. We shall have taught you. Under passive, a book will have been read by me. You will have been taught by us. Hope you have understood the slight change here in future perfect tense under affirmative sentences where you will use will or shall, have plus been plus third form of the verb. Do you understand? Yes. Now moving on to the next one where we talk about the negative sentences. The rule is to change them into passive voice and we use will or shall plus not plus have plus been plus past participle. Now under the active, I shall not have read a book. We shall not have taught you. Now passive, a book will have not been read by me. You will not have been taught by us. Can you make out the difference there with shall and will? Yes. Now under interrogative sentences, the rule to change into passive voice, we use shall or will before the subject and have plus been plus past participle after it. For example, under active, shall or will is supposed to be used before the subject. Shall I have read a book? Shall we have taught you? Will a book have been read by me? Will you have been taught by us? Hope you have understood the placing of all these. Now moving on to the next one, that is negative interrogative sentences. The rule to change them into passive voice, use shall or will before the subject and before the subject. Remember this. Have plus not plus been plus past participle after it. The rule shall or will before the subject and not plus have been plus past participle after it is also in practice. Example, will a book not have been read by me? Or will a book have not been read by me? Both makes the same sense. Both of the above sentences are considered as correct now. Under active, shall I not have read a book? Under passive, will a book have not been read by me? Under active, shall we not have taught you? Under passive, will you have not been taught by us? So carefully read the examples along with the explanation given for your better understanding. Now, what is the note here? The following 4 types of sentences cannot be changed into passive voice. Yes. So now, these sentences are the assignments given. I will just read out for your understanding. Yes, the first assignment or the first exercise is to rewrite the following sentences, putting the verbs given against them in the appropriate passive voice form. She dash up by her aunt. You have to make use of the verbs given in the bracket to change the voice. Invitation cards, dash to all her friends. You will dash to the feast. The result dash on Monday. They dash at the report of the gun. We dash at his failure. Rice dash in many parts of the world. The political prisoners dash tomorrow. Sweets dash among the students. The inquiry dash next month. You dash of our decision on Sunday next. When I reach the hall, the picture dash. I want all of you to answer this. Now you have to change these sentences into the different voice. She sings a sweet song. Does he sell lottery tickets? I am bending the branch. Is she boiling potatoes? Are the servants bringing tea? The ball has been caught by the child. I have not been compelled by anybody. Had their fingers not dipped by them in the water? Was the mirror dropped by you? Was her baby not being fed by her? Now I want you to answer or change the sentences into the different voice and at the same time write the changes. You have to mention which voice this sentence belongs to. You have to mention the question's voice as well as the answer's voice. Hope you have understood this, children, and hope that you will be completing the assignment as well in your grammar book. Thank you.